wasn't doing the work. I was just kind of like babysitting. So
I know some superintendents throughout my career. I call them babysitters. They got angry. I'm glad that you said it too. All right, Sean, here we go. You ready?
Okay.
Good, great. This will be fun. Welcome to ProTalks. This is episode number 3. We've got our second guest on the show. Her name is Miss Cathy Drexler. She's originally from New Jersey. She's now in North Carolina. Very interesting story to this lady. She's originally in theater, transitioned into construction, something you really won't see that much. But she is now a superintendent in the construction industry. Miss Cathy, welcome to the show.
Hi, glad to be here. How are you?
Good, great.
Welcome to the show, Miss Cathy.
Thank you, Sean.
How does one graduate in theater and end up over here with us on the construction side?
Well, right out of college, I started videotaping weddings and bar mitzvahs. I was a photographer and stuff. And I took a break when I got married. I was a theater major, so they invited me to the show and they asked me a few questions, and I started in special ed department, and I was the technical theater director for Butler High School Theater. I also ran the mass media club, getting back into theater, teaching the kids how to build sets and paint the sets and just construct everything that you had to do. So ordering wood, you'd have to paint, you'd have to, get fencing. And I would use construction site materials. One of my friends had called me up while we were constructing the producer, and I had like 3 weeks to get it rolling. And he's like, "What are you doing? There's a lot of hammering in the background and it sounds like, you're building something." I said, "Well, yeah, I have a show in 3 weeks and we have to build this set." And he said, "Oh, it sounds like what I do." And he's like I was like, "You're in theater?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, well, what do you do?" Because I hadn't talked to him in a long time. He goes, "I'm in construction." And I'm like, "I work with kids and build theater sets. How does that relate?" And he's like, "Oh, well, if you're doing special ed, you eventually have the kids who are, troubled kids who don't want to be in school. They want to work with their hands, and they eventually become your subcontractors because they want to work with their hands. They want to, think on their feet, and
I can see that.
They're not the college kind of material." I was like, "Oh, okay. I can see the similarity there." And then, construction, I'm teaching them construction, so they'll eventually, get to that point. I had moved the following year down to North Carolina, and I had the summer off. He said, "Hey, do you want to, do a job?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm not doing anything." So I flew to Florida, and I had the painter on site, and it was at nighttime. I was doing a Sony job. And what he had to do was he had to scrape the diffusers and repaint them because it got a little, moisture and everything. And it was just, the paint was peeling.
So this
he had
is a
to fix that.
contractor. I hate to interject, but this is a contractor you had never met before. It sounds like they flew you somewhere that unfamiliar to yourself, and you're in the summer off, and this guy
I kind of stepped in it.
Yeah, so he noticed your boss skills as managing other, and so he sends you all the way to Florida for your first project.
Yep.
So
I had to rent a car and a hotel room and everything.
Well, that tells me the confidence they had in you just initially, because your first job is not even locally where they could keep a close eye watch. So you're the only person there that you knew.
I was the only person I knew.
Wow, were you nervous about it? It's your first job. How did that
I had talked to the subcontractor before I even left North Carolina on the phone, and I said, "Here's the hours we're going to do. We're going to meet at the mall or whatever at this time." And he's like, fine. So he seemed like he was pretty easy to get along with. We met up. He got busy painting and scraping, and
it was a retail job.
Yeah.
So the scope of work included, I'm going to detail this job out because I like this stuff. So you go down to to a superintendent job that you knew no one there. It's your first project. You get new subcontractors. I'm trying to pick you apart and find out what made you nervous. I got to find some nerves in this somewhere, because I'd be nervous if I was in your situation.
I wasn't doing the work. I was just kind of like babysitting. So,
I can't wait to get to response on that. Well, I know some superintendents throughout my career. I call them babysitters. They got angry, but it's good. I'm glad that you said it too. I'm gonna make sure they hear this broadcast. Good stuff.
And you're kind of just hanging out with them and letting them do their thing, because they're the professional who does the actual work. I was there, I think, probably 4 days.
Yeah. So you
flew home, and I got a check. I was like happy.
Yeah.
They don't pay much in North Carolina for teachers.
That's pretty common everywhere, and that's one thing that unfortunately I always heard about it. Of course, it was in the home. My father was a teacher, and then principal, and then county superintendent school system. And my mother, she's 6-year specialist as well. She's a retired teacher. At one point in time, I had in the same school. This was even in, I think it was elementary school at the time. I had my mother as a teacher, my uncle as a teacher down the hall, and my father was the principal of the same school. So it's
oh wow,
yeah, it's the
pressure's on.
But no one messed with me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No one would mess with me. Little they knew I'd have been the one with the ass whipping if anything happened. So yeah, I get that. But I guess what I'm most interested in is, what were your qualifications to this guy who sent you down? He knew you had worked on a set. And he knew you had basically special ed children as your subcontractors or your workers at the time, or that's your crew.
Well, don't forget, these weren't the severe special ed. These were the ones who didn't really want to be in regular class. So
yeah.
They used to throw them all in special ed at the time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if they didn't want to work and be in the classroom, all they did was disrupt the class. So a lot of them, some of them had, special needs and stuff, but
like
most
Sean.
of them just didn't want to be in class.
Now I see why you and Clay get along so well.
So where the heck were we?
Well, let's see. Sean, hit me out.
Well, she was telling us about taking the job full time and leaving education. Number one motivating factor that would make her walk away from those poor kids. And she said she did it all for money.
Why else would you do it?